I am very, very excited to have this guest with me. His name is Dr. Joe Casciano. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, Casiani.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
Jamie. Thanks.
And
Uh-huh.
you guys, he has a website and a business that is called Living to 100 dot club. Living to 100
Right.
dot club. And we'll have this on top of the video when we finish. But oh my gosh, can I call you Joe?
Yes, please. I'm very comfortable with that, Gene. Yeah,
I
Joe's good.
I
Yeah.
am so excited to have you because a lot of my followers, that we have many, many followers, and a lot of them know about my stories about my dad. My dad lived to be 105, and he was very healthy right up until 2 weeks before.
Mm.
And he really expected that he was just going to live forever. And but I have to tell you this real quick because I don't want this to be about me. It's got to be about you. But he didn't eat vegetables. He didn't eat fruit. He didn't drink water. He ate a high fat, high sugar diet. His cholesterol was 150. I mean, this man did all the wrong things, and he was one of the healthiest people that I've known. But Joe, up here,
The
so
mindset
positive,
was right.
no negative thought in his brain. So I am very anxious for you to tell us some of these tips and some of the things that you know, because I was
Sure.
looking at your website and it said 30, because I keep thinking, oh my God, because I'm 82 and I keep thinking, oh my gosh, I've got these great genes and I'm going to be just like my dad. But you said on your website, 30% is genetic and the rest is other things. So
Lifestyle
let's talk a little
factors,
bit about that.
right? Yeah, yeah. No, I was really impressed when I saw that research. Thank you, by the way, for inviting me to your program. I'm really
Oh,
happy to be here.
well, we're very
I
excited.
love to talk about aging well and resilience and
I do too.
staying positive. But
Mm.
the Department of Health published this research in 2016 and looked at a lot of other studies, and they found that our longevity is based on genetics, our genes, about 30% of the time. And that means the other 70% of our longevity is due to lifestyle factors. And that tells us that so much of our well-being, our aging and wellness is up to us. It's not limited by our genes. And my parents didn't know that, and my grandparents sure didn't know that. And we're finally getting away from that ageist stereotype about,
Right.
senior years bring decline and dependence and helplessness. And it's really, fortunately, we have a much more positive view about our senior years now, and it's time to celebrate. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is. And I work with all women, and they get so traumatic about their aging and about getting older. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, it's just, I'm having a blast with my life.
Yeah.
And the one thing that they always say that I think is so important, we've got to change this paradigm. They'll say to me, well, you don't look like you're 82. Well, what does 82 look like? We don't, this is 82.
Mhm.
So we've got to change that whole putting people
Yeah.
in a box, right? And
Yeah.
thinking this is their age, this is what they should be doing, they should be on a walker, they should be whatever.
Yeah.
We've got to
Yeah.
change that. But give us some tips on what you have discovered on that with that 70% of lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'm not going to live to be 100 if I keep drinking martinis, right?
Well, it's all about our outlook and our attitude. And to me, age is only a number.
Mm-hmm.
Age doesn't say anything about what we should or shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And I always, when I talk to senior groups, I always open by referencing the blue zones. And you probably know about the blue zones and
Yes.
what we learned from the centenarians who are living in these 5 areas around the world where they have the highest concentration of centenarians. And, things like diet, plant and vegetables, alcohol is okay in moderation, 1 to 2 glasses. Physical activity is essential, always being active. The centenarians in the blue zones are walking up and down steps, doing gardening. They're not necessarily running marathons or going to the gym, but very physically active. And then, we look at social engagement and staying connected. And
Right.
to me, one of the most important of these tips, and we learn this all over, is the importance of having some meaning and purpose in our lives.
Right.
And that, that gives us the reason to, when we wake up in the morning, we have a smile on our face and we say, this is what I'm looking forward to today. And that could be a hobby, that could be a new career, a new vocation, avocation. It could be, taking some online classes, maybe volunteering at a community center, whatever it is, but having something that gives us some sense of purpose, that I have value in my life, and this is important. So this is one of the tips from the Blue Zones, of course, and many of your listeners probably have heard of Twyla Tharp, and Twyla Tharp is this famous choreographer in New York, and she's in her 80s, and she still teaches choreography, and she's still dancing, and she still has students. And she wrote a great book. I would recommend it. It's called Keep It Moving.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And yeah, one of her tips is this whole notion of engagement and nonstop engagement. No matter where we are, whatever level we're at, we need to stay connected and continue to engage with other people.
Mhm. Well,
And that also means, just quickly, I did a presentation once, and someone asked me, an older gentleman, he said, what about these golden years? I keep hearing about these golden years. I'm still waiting for my golden years. It was funny, but I said to him, look, you have to go after it. It's not going to
right,
come knocking on your door.
right.
You've got to be the golden years. You've got to be the change that you want to become. And that's where it starts. Don't wait for somebody to come knocking on your door and say, here I am. No. It's our initiative. It's our drive. It's our commitment. So
I
that's
love that.
yeah,
That is so much my philosophy. You've
great.
got to get out and find it. You have to get out and, do something. You can't just sit there and expect everything to happen.
Yeah.
And I have a slogan that I learned when I was in my 30s from this special friend of mine. Um, she said to me, when my life is not the way I want it, that's the day I change it. And I thought
Mm,
that is such a perfect thing. And I raised my
mm,
daughter that way, and I have lived by that. If my life
yeah.
isn't going the way I want it to go, then I'm going to change it. And I'm the only one, Joe, that can change it. I can't expect
Yes.
somebody else to come in and change it for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah.
so important. I mean, and I'm talking about women because that's what our group is all about. But these women, they just, they do have to keep moving, and they can't let that age thing get in their heads because it's not important.
Yeah. I think you're so accurate, on target with this, Gene, because we do need to take the action ourselves. And I love to talk about redefining ourselves, right? I mean,
Yes,
whatever we did last year or 10 years ago, or career, whatever it was, that doesn't have to determine who we are today,
right.
right? We can
Yes,
redefine, we
yes.
can, the popular term is reinvent ourselves,
Hmm.
and being open to new things, new challenges, new opportunities.
Hmm.
I liken it to a blank screen, and we can project whatever we want on this blank screen. It's, as you say, it's up to us. We can write whatever script we want. That's the beauty here. We can write whatever character we want. We don't have to let yesterday determine who I am today. So
Right.
that's why it's wide open. There's so many opportunities and exciting times to look ahead to at whatever level.
Very exciting times.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
dad skydived with me when he was 91.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and
Good for him.
I
Yeah.
know, and he was very vibrant, still played golf at 100. And his biggest mistake, Joe, was that he got married at 94, and he married not a nice person.
Oh, wow.
And it kind
Wow.
of, the last 10 years of his life, well, I think the first 5 are okay, but the last 5 years of his life with her was not very good. So my little
Mm,
warning, don't get married at 90, 95.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, he just never thought about, I used to say to him all the time, Daddy, you've got to change your eating. You can't eat that stuff that you're eating,
Yeah.
all that fat. And he'd say, why? And it's because it's not good for your cholesterol. And I said,
Yeah.
have you had your cholesterol checked lately? And he went like, yeah, about 2 weeks
Mm,
ago. And I said, and what was it? And he said,
mm.
150. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so do
Wow.
you think, let me just ask your opinion, because now that I'm getting older, he's been gone about uh 10 years. But now that I'm getting older, I think, what was that kept, because he did not do anything healthy, but he did not
Mm,
smoke or drink.
mm.
But it had to have been genetics and the positive mind, right? I mean, didn't eat right.
Yeah, I think that's a big driver. I mean, there are plenty of people like your father who don't follow all the prescriptions and the medical advice, and yet they can stay hardy and strong and go on for many, many years. So there are a lot of these exceptions, and I do think there are exceptions, and it's not the rule. So we do know, I mean, there's a lot of evidence now. There's a lot of science about these factors that contribute, like fitness and diet, nutrition,
Right.
engagement, social connection, and all that. So these are the broad prescriptions, and I'm not saying there's no exceptions. But you know what I always like to bring into my conversation. I'm a psychologist and I work with older adults my whole career in nursing homes, and I learned a lot. And what I focus on, we know these principles about living longer, but I always say, what happens when we hit those bumps and potholes? What happens when we have an obstacle that comes along? Because we know it's not a smooth road for
Right.
everyone. And we're always going to have the vision problems or hearing, or maybe unsteady, or maybe we're going to fall, or maybe we're going to have a stroke, or any event like this, maybe a medical, serious medical event, and even a personal loss of a loved one, maybe our spouse. We've been married for 50 years and our spouse passes away. So how do we manage these events? And to me, that's where I'd like to zero in and talk about. That's what makes for successful aging, being able to manage and cope with these events and still stay positive and still look forward to our future. Because, like I said, it's not a smooth road. We've got to be prepared for these setbacks. So let's not get thrown. Because I would see so many times people would come in after a stroke and they throw their hands up and say, I'm done. I can't go to rehab. Physical therapy is too hard. And other people would say, okay, this is a tough hit. I'm going to have to dig deep and I'm
Right.
going to push through it. I'm going to make it. So there is that kind of mindset that separates the positives from the negatives. And that, I think we're all capable of having that positive mindset. And
But that is
I love
such
to,
a,
if it's okay,
yeah,
I love to just, go ahead.
that is such a good point.
Yeah.
Uh, because I do a lot of inspirational things, speak talks and too. And I always say, don't, I'm very positive and everything, but I'm very healthy. I don't know what
Yeah.
it's like to not, to, like you're
Yeah.
saying, be on the other side. So it's
Yeah.
easier for me to be positive and be, um, out
Mm,
there, and I never ever want to preach or, whatever. But oh my gosh, what a great point to bring up, because
yeah.
that's true. I mean, I've been married for
Yeah.
60 years. And I just think if something happens to my husband, which he's very healthy too, but if something
Yeah.
happened to him, how would I cope? And everybody goes like, oh, you'd be okay. You'd cope okay. And I'm like, you know what? I'm
Mm,
not so sure.
yeah.
So I
Yes.
think that is an excellent point, how to
Yeah.
cope in those tough situations.
How do we interpret these events? How do we label or explain these events to ourselves? And to me, that's going to color how well we cope with, right? There are the positive thinking types and there are the negative thinking types. And I do this exercise when I speak in front of a large group and I say, all right, everybody on the right side of the room, you're the positive thinkers. Put your optimism hat on. I want you to look around and find everything that's good about this room. All the bright lights and the furniture and
Yeah.
the color and the sun. And all right, everybody on the other side of the room, you're the negative thinkers. Put your pessimist hat on. You find the scratches, the stains, the broken fixtures, whatever. And then I reconvene and I ask for, what did you see? What did you see? And my point is, it's the same room. What
Oh,
are you
yeah.
looking for? What
Yeah.
are you looking for? Are you looking for the good things in your environment? Or are you looking for the bad things, the broken things, the negative things? And that's just a perfect example. How do we go through our day and how do we observe and how do we explain these events or situations, environments? And that's just a good way to stop and say, oh, gee, I guess I really did, you know, put a negative twist on that. I read. So that's helpful. Yeah.
Oh, I think that's a great exercise.
Yeah, it is.
And
Yeah.
and of course, and some of our followers have heard this story, but one of my favorite stories about my dad is we have this boat up here in Minnesota. We had it, we don't have it now. He loved to go out on that boat. And the night before, it was like rain, 80% chance of rain. I said, Daddy, I just don't think we're gonna be able to go. It's 80% chance of rain. And he looked at me and
Yeah.
kind of winked and he said, well, let's concentrate on that 20%.
Yeah.
And I went to bed
There
and
you
thought,
go.
there is
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
way. And we, of course,
Yeah.
as you know, we woke up in the morning, the sun was shining, the sky was
Yeah.
blue, and it's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So I saw
Yeah.
examples like that all the time with him. And I just grew up very positive. But my mother was just the opposite. She was very negative. But I do think
Mhm.
that it has so much to do with it, Joe. Have you
Yeah.
always been positive? I mean, have you always been that type of person?
Oh, I don't know. I could find things that got in the way. I could find problems. I could, be pessimistic. And I just know as I learn more about positive thinking and positive psychology and how powerful that is, how we, you know,
Mhm.
sometimes when we're depressed, I talk about, depression affects us in a lot of ways. It affects our mood, our attitude, our
Mhm.
sleep, our appetite. One thing that depression does very well is that it narrows our perspective. All we can see is what's wrong. All we can see are the
Yeah.
failures or disappointments or
Uh-huh.
the regrets. And it's almost like we're wearing these filters or
Yeah.
blinkers, like horses wear
Yeah.
blinkers so they're not
Uh-huh.
distracted. Well, we're wearing these blinkers, so we're not allowing ourselves to see the positives, the good
Mhm.
things. So what I recommend that is start paying attention to the positives. Look for those exceptions. It's not all dark, it's not all gray sky. There's still blue sky above. So look for those exceptions and find those things. Because once you find one exception, there's more.
It
There's other
opens up.
positives there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So don't get lost in all that's
No,
wrong. Let's
no,
start opening up to take
right.
those blinkers off. Yeah.
Well, tell us
Yeah.
about your website. Tell us about your business, your website. You've written a book, right?
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
the
Couple
name? I didn't
books.
write it
Yeah.
down, but what's the name of it?
Yeah. I'll get it. Living longer is the new normal.
Okay.
It captures a lot of what I'm talking about today. It's a quick read. It's available on Amazon, or you can go to my website and order it. Living longer is the new normal. And again, it captures a lot of these tips and recommendations, things that I've learned over my career. My website is really a collection of a lot of resources. I've been doing podcasts now. I'm just probably up to 150 podcasts. So you can go to my library and
Okay.
listen
Uh-huh.
to any number of different topics.
Good.
I've got a number of blogs there.
Mm.
People can go to the website and sign up for some one-on-one counseling or coaching with me if they're
Oh,
interested.
that's great to know.
Yeah. Yeah, happy to do that.
Yeah.
That's my area.
Yeah.
It's my specialty. I'm not looking for, people who want long-term counseling. I just want to help people come up with some solutions and
Hmm.
let's get past some of those barriers.
And
So
don't
the
you
counseling
think,
is there.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't
Yeah,
you think too, I mean, the whole aging thing, it is quite challenging, the aging.
sure.
Um, it's it's not easy, but I think if
No.
you have the right attitude, I had cataract surgery at 80 and I had
Uh-huh.
the type of eyes that I ended up with 20/20 vision.
Uh-huh.
I've never had 20/20 vision in my life.
Oh,
So some
uh,
woman said the other day, I'm getting ready to have cataract surgery, Gene, and I'm so depressed about it. And I'm like, why?
uh,
I mean, you're going to be
yeah,
able to see. I mean, I
yeah,
remember even seeing, I saw age spots on my hands and I thought, oh my gosh, that is so cool. Because now I
yeah,
know, what's going on. And I
yeah,
couldn't see before. I always wore
Mhm.
contacts or glasses, but so that was a real treat. And I
Mm.
think that, but the aging thing is hard. You know, women have a
It's
hard
hard.
time
Yeah.
accepting the wrinkles. They have a hard time, or we, I say, have a hard time accepting the appearance that
Yeah.
we run into.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a psychological thing too.
Well, it is, and I'm not minimizing the, the effect of these changes. I don't. I'm the first one to admit it is difficult. I've seen this. It's not easy. It's
Right.
not easy, and I recognize. And sometimes it's a really, really heavy hit, and we
Mhm,
stop to grieve and mourn, and
mhm.
process this, and we can't look to move on beyond it too fast until we're ready. But at the same time, let's not equate our worth, our value with our physical appearance.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
there's such an emphasis on, anti-aging and,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
positives. And yeah, that's good, but there's nothing wrong with physical changes as we age.
Right. Right.
It's really okay. And I'll give you a quick story. I had a patient who had advanced diabetes and the very, bad vascular condition and, circulation. And he had to have one leg amputated and
Okay.
very, very difficult adjustment for him. I'll call him Ralph. Ralph was a
Okay.
professional boxer. His whole career, he was a boxer. And his boxing days were over, of course. But 3 months later, he had to have his second leg amputated. And it was very difficult
Oh,
for Ralph to look in the mirror and see himself. And geez, I prided myself on my appearance my whole life. And here I am now. I'm gonna have to wear artificial legs, prostheses instead of my
mhm,
real leg. And I would spend some time working with him and helping him see that, look, your worth is not dependent on what your appearance is. Don't,
right.
that's a trap. Don't go there
Mhm.
because our value is immutable. It doesn't depend on what's going on with our body, no matter where we are, what kind of decline or how many aids or assistance we need, our worth is still there. And uh,
Well, and I
let's
think,
not put too
yeah,
much emphasis on the appearance. Yeah.
I know, but I think women are worse at that than men.
Yeah,
You know, and
sure. I,
I saw this woman the other day. She was trying on this blouse, and it was so cute on her, this little shirt. And she said, "I don't think I can wear it." And I said, "Why?" And she, "Because I've got these little broken veins in my arm." And I'm like, you
yeah,
know what? And she was 75. I
yeah,
said, "You know what? We are way past that. We are way past the little broken veins. We're way
yeah,
past the wrinkle. You know, we're
yeah,
just
yeah,
past all that stuff." So you wear something or you do something and you enjoy it and you feel good, and you go on. But women are,
yeah.
I think, much worse about that, Joe, than men.
No,
They,
yeah, no,
that whole
I can
appearance
appreciate.
thing.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I can appreciate that. And
Yeah, yeah.
I just think from a mental health standpoint, I think you're right. That we're beyond that. We don't need to
We
get caught up
are.
in some of those things.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
somebody wrote me the other day, because I get all kinds of emails and stuff, and they said, "I heard that somebody is alive today on the planet that will live to be 150. And
Mm,
maybe it's you."
mm.
But is
Yeah.
there anything to that? 150? Surely not.
I don't know if we're around right now that will live that long. I think we're making a lot of strides, a lot of breakthroughs, and we're learning.
Yeah.
That 30% is not even fixed anymore because that's shrinking. We can now treat some conditions, some forms of cancer and other medical
Hmm.
chronic conditions that we never could treat before. So
Right.
that even that 30% is shrinking down.
Okay.
So, maybe it'll continue to shrink, and no matter what's in our genes, we'll be able to continue,
Yeah.
well past
Yeah.
100. I don't think it's out of the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine if we've only lived half of our lives at
I
our age?
know. Wouldn't that be something? Okay.
Yeah,
I have so enjoyed you, and I know
yeah.
our followers have too. And I think we should have you back. We can keep talking.
I'd love that. I'd love
I
that.
know.
Feel free.
I
Yeah,
I love this whole title, Living to 100 dot
yeah,
club. I mean, that just
yeah,
fascinated me. That was so great. And
yeah,
so we will put that on top of this video, the link, and then they can look you up. And your book is on your website, right? Because I
It
saw
is
it.
on my website. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
And gosh, thank you so much for this interview,
Mm.
because I feel like we all have to keep sharing. You know, we have to share
Mm.
stories, we have to share
Yeah.
our thoughts. I think that's so important to just keep sharing as we get older.
And
So-
learning from each other. Yes,
Exactly,
yes.
exactly.
Well,
So
uh,
kisses
very
to you.
welcome. Thank you again
Yeah.
for this invitation. I've enjoyed it, and I'd love to come back and do it again.
Okay, that's great.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.